Most PA programs use a traditional method for interviewing in which the applicant is interviewed by one or two individuals, at least one of them being a member of the PA program's actual staff, and the other usually being another staff member or physician assistant who might be practicing in the area. Another less popular and less used method involves having a number of applicants in the same room with each other at the same time as they respond to the same interview questions. A last and also unpopular method is a rotational interview, in which you travel through a series of rooms responding to one or two questions presented by the interviewer in each room. This method allows the interviewing committee to create a segmented evaluation for each candidate, but it's still less common than the traditional interview, and at UNE they use the traditional interview method. On the night before interview dates at UNE, all interview candidates are invited to a social event with current first-year PA students to ask them about the program, to ask them what it's like to be a PA student, and what they should be expecting for the day ahead for interviews. Many PA programs will offer tours of their campus on interview days, as well as question and answer opportunities with their current students. Between touring the school and having their interview, candidates might be asked to fill out a written portion of their evaluation, usually consisting of one or two interview-type questions that won't be asked in the verbal interview portion. Finally, at some point in the day, you'll be prompted to start your one-on-one or two-on-one interview session. Before I get into topics about what kind of questions will be asked in the interview, I think it's important to mention that there really aren't any unique correct answers for any of the questions that might be presented to you in a PA school interview. The best way to answer just about any question is by responding fully and honestly. Also, no one, especially myself, is an expert on how to nail an interview. Looking online to brainstorm interview questions can be helpful, but don't memorize your responses verbatim. If your answers to questions sound rehearsed, you'll be missing out on an opportunity to show the committee who you truly are, and they're probably going to be able to tell that you rehearsed your questions. That being said, there are definitely some questions that can be better prepared for than others, such as knowing exactly why you want to be a physician assistant. I know this sounds like a very, broad question, but in some way you're going to be asked this question, whether they're directly asking you why you want to be a PA or what you feel are the most important characteristics of a PA or anything along those lines. In a question like this, the answer should really pop into your head anytime this question is asked of you from anyone, whether it's the actual interviewer in your interview or even a family member. You should always have an idea as to why you want to be a PA. And kind of going further into that, you should know why you want to be a physician assistant and not a medical doctor. Of course, there are many ways that both professions cross over, and you should have some interests in one if you like the other. And it's really not unreasonable to want to be a PA over an MD because it takes less time and money to get there through your education. But just know that a PA program is not necessarily easier to get into than medical school. And PA programs, although they're shorter, they can be just as challenging as medical school. Although the history of PAs is relatively short compared to most occupations, I think it would be helpful to know some of the history of the PA profession, such as why do we even have PAs in the medical field? When did we first get PAs in the United States? And who were the first PAs? What kind of jobs were they holding before they became physician assistants? While these questions can be researched online to have a better and more exact answer, there are definitely going to be personal questions that you're asked in your interview that should require less research and should come more from the heart. You should be prepared to be able to back up your patient care experience and how you will relate your experiences to your job as a physician assistant. A lot of time people will work as CNAs, phlebotomists, EMTs, and they'll have experiences that they wish they were able to do more, and they feel that becoming a physician assistant will help them get to that point where they can help a patient to the highest extent. Another question that you might be asked in your interview is, how much time do you plan on studying throughout the week during PA school? I think most people who are interested in PA school have an understanding that it's going to be very difficult and it's going to be very time consuming, but the school will probably want to know about how much time commitment you think that this will be. Another popular question is, will you have family close by to support you while you're in PA school? I know that sounds kind of dramatic, but the experience of PA school is very intense and it can be stressful, and it's important to have a network of people who are your support while you're there and getting your classwork done, because you're going to need breaks every now and then, and you're going to need someone who you can talk to and kind of just de-stress with. These next two questions are important for when you're interviewing for PA school, but they're questions that you should absolutely have answers to for yourself. The first question, which actually does appear quite a bit in interviews, is what will you do if you don't get into PA school this year? And I know that kind of sounds like a scary question, but they really do want to know that you have a plan if you weren't accepted into any program. A response like, oh, I might, go back to school and apply to medical school, that's not what they're looking to hear. And obviously, the answer to this question is specific to everyone. But you should have the idea in mind that if you aren't getting into PA school the first time, your ultimate goal should be applying again and doing something that make you stand out. Another question that you might be asked is, what have you done to set yourself apart from other PA school applicants? And this is an opportunity to kind of boast. If you have something that you've done, even if it's outside the medical field, like coaching a sports team or being a resident advisor like myself, or some kind of leadership position that doesn't necessarily fall into the category of your average PA student, you want to mention that so that they know who they're working with, they know that you have different background, and they know that you've held some kind of leadership or volunteer position. The last and probably the most important, honestly, part of the interview is asking questions from the staff members that are interviewing you. As much as they're interviewing you, you should be interviewing them. So kind of a rule of thumb, you should have at least 2 questions that you plan on asking them. And those could be questions like, what sets the school apart from the other programs that you could be applying to? Like, what are they offering their students that other schools don't? Because honestly, you want to go to a program that fits what you would expect from a PA program. Another option is to ask a personal question of the staff member who is interviewing you, such as asking them about their clinical experiences, because they were likely a physician assistant before they started working, or maybe they still are practicing. And kind of asking a question on a personal level can help them remember you as an applicant. Make sure in the months after your interview that as you wait for your response, you're sending a thank you card either to the program or to your interviewer, just as a gesture to show that you really appreciated the time that they took to give you an interview. And good luck everyone out there who's watching this who have been invited to interview.